The one thing you need to do to prevent telephone scams. I'm Ron Brown with Tech for Senior. Today I wanted to do a video about something that really hit home to me this week. It's a beautiful September day, and I thought I would do this out on my deck so you can watch the boats going in and out of the harbor as I do my little talk. So enjoy the scenery, but I have a very important topic to discuss today, one in which I felt ashamed at the way I felt about a certain topic, and an event happened last Tuesday which had a big effect on some of the things that I'm going to be doing now with Tech for Senior. So the topic today is how to prevent telephone scams as a senior, which is an ever-increasing problem. So let me take you to last Tuesday. Now Tuesday is my Costco day. I always go to Costco on Tuesday. Now I like to get there. In Canada, Costco opens at 9 o'clock in the morning. I like to be there because it actually opens 15 minutes early. It opens at 8:45. I get there about 10 or 15 minutes early. I like to sit back in my car, enjoy the radio, and get my thoughts together before tackling the Costco deal. So I was there last Tuesday. I got there on time. I was there about 8:30, so I had 15 minutes to go before Costco opened. Well, at that time, I was listening to my favorite TV show, or my favorite radio show, and I was listening to a topic which came on, and it said this lady was scammed on the telephone of $30,000. Now, I thought, oh, another person. Why don't they just watch Tech for Senior, all the videos we do about scamming, and why didn't she just save her password, don't give it out? How could she be so stupid? Anyway, I wasn't going to listen to the show. I was going to turn it over, but I thought I'll just listen to it until Costco opens. And then the show came on and they were interviewing her. And I felt really bad for my feelings. And not only was I so involved in the show, I missed the Costco opening at 1:45, and I stayed and listened to the whole show in the car until it was over. She was a very dynamic speaker, and one in which I wanted to share her story with you because it had such an impact on me and things that I'm going to change at Tech for Senior. So let me tell you about this lady. Now you have to remember I'm listening to this on the radio, so I don't actually get to see her, but I would suspect she's probably in her 50s. She lives in Ontario, Canada. She must be a small business lady because she had a business account, and she's very articulate and, most importantly, a very bright person. So she was relating her story on what happened, and I want to go over that because this is important. This lady was in the know and got caught up in a scam that everybody here would probably fall for. So let me explain what happened. It was early in the morning, just before she'd finished breakfast. She was with her husband and she was off to work. And she got a call, and the call display said it was from her bank. Now she's obviously knows about scams and all the things that we talk about. So she pulled out her bank card, and the phone number on the back of the bank card matched the call display. So she thought, what am I going to do? She asked her husband. He said, I wouldn't answer it. She was a little more inquisitive, so she picked up the phone and she answered the phone, and of course it was the bank fraud department. Now in Canada we have 4 major banks. This was one of the 4 major banks. It's a very big bank. I'm not going to mention the name because that's not important. However, the fraud department said there was active fraud being done on her account, and they wanted her help in dealing with that. Now, she of course has her back up on this one, and she understands that she's, no, I'm not going to do this. But they were very smart. They were very skillful, and they didn't want her password. They didn't want her to do anything that was very unusual. They just asked her a couple of things. One, they said, do you have the app on your phone for the bank? And she said, yes, I do. And they said, would you mind logging in and making a few changes? And they told her what to do. And they were just moving a little bit of money between accounts, and that was all. They thanked her very much and said they had the problem under control. And when she hung up, she immediately had notifications from her bank that $30,000 had been transferred from a line of credit in her business account to her personal account, and that it had been transferred out of her account by an e-transfer. Interestingly enough, the next call that came from the same number, which was her bank, and they said, "This is the fraud department calling." And she said, "No, I just talked to you." And they said, "No, that wasn't us." So you can see where this went. And she lost her $30,000. Now, I think it's important for you to understand in this situation, obviously the number was spoofed. In other words, when you look at the call display on your phone, the bank number that comes up could be actually a fraud number. How that occurs, complicated. How they got into her account and how all that transaction stuff happened. Let's just look at this again. I think this was a very intelligent lady. She had a lot of knowledge about technology. She answered the phone. She believed it to be truly the bank, and she followed some directions which she thought were pretty innocuous, and she lost $30,000. Now, to me, if a bank is going to prevent fraud and insure you against fraud, you would think that they would just cover this, because this clearly was a fraudulent act. In fact, just to fast forward in the story, she reported this to the police, and through an investigation process, they did actually catch the person who did this. Yes, they arrested them and charged the individual. However, the bank has also refused to give her money back, as they said that she must have somehow provided some security information for these people. So what's the point of my story today? Well, first of all, I felt bad because when I initially heard this story, I thought this was about somebody who did something really dumb. But she hadn't. She was well-informed, very articulate, bright person, and I think did a pretty darn good job on looking after her security. So what could she have done better? I'm going to tell you, with voice modeling and all the AI tools hackers have now, it is impossible for anybody, even the smartest people, to prevent these very, very skilled people from accessing your bank account and stealing money. So it is very difficult. So the one thing I wanted to let seniors know is that it is so important, if a call comes in like this, that you hang up. In other words, you simply say to the person, "I will call you back at the bank's number on the back of my card." Don't hit redial or anything like that, because that'll just send you back to the scammer, right? So it's very important that you do not continue the conversation after you find out this is something that's going to make you uncomfortable. It is extremely important that you hang up the phone. This will disconnect the call, and then you can call back your trusted bank or credit union or whatever by the phone number that is on the back of your bank card. So the message that you need to remember, and the takeaway point of this video, is to hang up and call. Hang up and call. You see, as seniors, sometimes in the morning our brain's a little fuzzy, sometimes we've taken medication, sometimes we're just not on our game. And will you remember when that call comes in on call display of all the things we've taught you about security? Probably not. Your first instinct might be to answer that phone. So hang up and call. Hang up and call. Remember that. On our Tuesday newsletter at Tech for Senior, I'm going to be inserting into our newsletter a section on security, and I'm going to give you little tips each week of the things that you should be doing. But I'm going to title the section in our newsletter "Hang Up and Call." I'm going to label it that. So again, the more you read it, you'll remember, hang up and call. Hang up and call. That's so important. If you hang up on the person, it disconnects the relationship, and then you can go and get help from the real people at your bank, credit union, or whatever financial institution you have. The other thing that's important to understand is with seniors, it's always helpful to have an answering machine or voicemail. Now, the nice thing about an answering machine is they can leave a message. But you know something? Scammers don't usually leave messages. They want you to get you off your guard, and they want you to do something right now. So screening your calls with an answering machine is often a very good thing to do. Also, remember, you can then, the tables turn. You can now phone that individual back when you're feeling your best. You may enable some friends to come over to help you. You may, and so you can gather up resources before you make that call if it's a call that you want to make. So answering machines are great. Voicemail is great if you don't have a landline. I will encourage you to learn how to use voicemail, because as a retired physician, I spent a lot of time in my life trying to find people, and most of them didn't know how to use voicemail. So please, if you are going to use voicemail for a cell phone number, please learn how to use voicemail. So in summary, I felt bad for this person. I hope they do get their money back. I think it was a clear case of fraud. In fact, they caught the person that did it. But remember, about 5 to 10 years ago, most of the banks in Canada and most in the United States changed their terms of service. And they have significantly limited their liability for fraudulent activity on phones and electronic transfers. So while you may think your bank's got your back and they're going to protect you, I'm going to suggest that may not be the case. It's Ron Brown with Tech for Senior. Hopefully you've had a great afternoon with me here. Hopefully you enjoyed the great view here. I think the rains are coming. Anyway, until we see you again, have a great day.